gateway into the mindset of the culture and the time period. The presence of the film industry in Chicago throughout the 20th century shows that the social attitude and economic events of the time period directly affects the films that are produced. In 1907, Chicago led the world in the rental of moving picture films and in the general patronage of the motion view. Chicago controlled 80% of the film distribution market for the whole United States. By 1910, 1/5 of the world's movies were being made in Chicago. But it wasn't always like this. How did the Chicago film industry get so big in the first place? Well, it started with an invention by Thomas Edison. The presentation of the kinetoscope by Edison at the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893 caused many film producers to become interested in advancing this new technology. George K. Spoorer became especially fascinated with the new technology and figured out a way to project the films being shown on the kinetoscope so people could sit down and be comfortable while watching. He perfected this advancement and soon opened up a small chain of movie theaters in Chicago. However, at the same time, William H. Selig was also making a projector, the Selig Polyscope. He quickly became a producer, and in 1897 he bought one of Edison's cameras to make several short films and melodramas. In addition, the Chicago film industry grew through the increase in people involved in the business. An inspirational piece in the Sunday magazine section of the Chicago Tribune describing the great future of the new motion picture industry inspired many people to explore new opportunities in the Chicago film industry in order to employ the new medium to make money. Also during this time period, a film called The Great Train Robbery was being made in New Jersey. It was a great success and was one of the first Western movies ever made. The society was in high demand for Western movies due to their interest in the unknown and undeveloped, leading more and more filmmakers to make Western films in the actual West. Selig tried to recreate the success of this movie on his own by hiring professional circus riders, importing Indians, and buying wild animals, and shot scenes in the countryside of Chicago. After this, he had an idea. Why not also film Western movies in the West itself? So, Selig hired actor Gilbert Anderson to scope out the West in search of authentic background footage. When Anderson was in California, Selig opened up a bigger facility and became a powerhouse in the film industry. In 1907, on his way back from California, Anderson encountered Spoorer, who wanted to make films but needed an experienced hand to work with him. Anderson would be perfect for this job since he was an actor, director, and former producer. They partnered up and founded the film studio SNA, named after their initials. California became the resting place for the areas to film Western movies, so Anderson could film in the real West. Not only was California chosen because it was in the West, but it also had weather conditions that contributed to year-round shoots. Differing terrains such as beaches, mountains, deserts, and forests, and land was also cheap and labor was plentiful.
However, Chicago did not stay a powerhouse in the film industry for long. Soon, Thomas Edison was not letting anyone make films. The only movie cameras around at the time were the ones that Edison patented. So, film producers tried to move as far away from Edison as possible, geographically, as Edison was in New Jersey at the time, and the further they were away, the less he'd know about what was going on with his camera. Also, SNA made a huge mistake when hiring Charlie Chaplin. He made only one movie during his time in Chicago, entitled His New Job. He was here for 3 weeks, and then went off to the SNA California branch. He demanded a $1,250 a week contract with the studio and a $10,000 signing bonus. SNA just could not afford him. Plus, he did not like Chicago because of the harsh weather conditions. Next, the independent filmmakers were getting more popular, and members of the Motion Picture Patent Company, such as SNA and Selig Polyscope, were not able to keep up with the success of the independent companies. Similarly, World War I was heating up at this time. Both Selig Polyscope and SNA were shipping films overseas, but when the war began, that source of income was no more. Also, the 1915 war tax, instituted by England, causing a 1,000-foot reel of film to cost $160 to import, caused a major market for American films to no longer be available. For both studios, film production started falling apart around 1915, but it is unclear as to the exact time when both fell apart. Even though the film industry in the 1910s was a huge factor in the economic growth and success in Chicago, there was no large backlash in the economy or socially after the film industry left. The curious minds of Chicagoans wandered elsewhere and propelled them to try new things, such as the distribution of films rather than the production. From 1919 to 1952, Chicago had the largest chain of movie theaters. Throughout different time periods, Chicago was part of both sections of the successful movie industry.
So, if the film industry was doing so well in Hollywood, why would it ever come back to Chicago? There were several reasons for this. Previously, when Mayor Richard J. Daley was in office, there weren't many movies being made because he was known for his hatred of movies being made in Chicago. So, in the late 1900s, when Jane Byrne became mayor, things turned drastically. One of the most influential movies in Chicago of the time period was The Blues Brothers. She even approved the famous car crash scene when they break the glass of Daley Plaza. This was a little jab at her predecessor, as he was so uptight about these types of scenes that would have been filmed in Chicago. She even gave the film industry official status in the special effects department. This led to 1979, when Jane implemented tax incentives to influence movie makers to come to Chicago. This was put in place because of the growing recession happening in the United States, which meant there was need for more jobs. Also, society was deeply interested in high concept films at the time. These were films with a fairly simple plotline, but were driven by action and the way in which the films were filmed. Chicago, being the large city it was the perfect space to film these. As production costs in Hollywood increased and ticket prices decreased, movie makers were in need of a change in order to continue filming, and Chicago provided the perfect solution: bigger films for less money. In turn, as more movies were being made in Chicago, it boosted people's morale through city pride. It also allowed for 35 years of economic benefit, beginning with the Blues Brothers, with $5 million made in 1979 to a booming $40 million in 1984, which is equivalent to $88 million today. Now, there's a subsidy for filmmakers in Illinois, which is a 30% tax credit.
So, there are still economic incentives going on today, just as there were in the late 1900s, and just as many, if not more, films and TV shows being produced as well. Through the exploration and exchange of ideas of the new technology in the late 1800s, the rise and decline in the 1910s and the return in the 1980s reveal the Chicago film industry is dependent upon the social mindset and economic actions in each time period. The curiosity of the new inventors during the late 1800s and early 1900s, when the Industrial Revolution was taking over the United States, led to more and more technology being developed for the film industry, which in turn led to more films being made with new ideas rolling in all the time. Then, as society wanted more and more Western films, filmmakers were forced to move their production out west. The society did well at this time because of the exploring mindsets of the people and their willingness to try new things. Next, as the growing recession hit the United States in the late 1900s, Jane Byrne was encouraged to bring the film industry back to Chicago to help create more jobs and foster a sense of pride for the city. As evident in all these things, the culture and society of any city very much affect what films are produced and what they are about. So the next time someone says that Hollywood is better than Chicago, just you mention Chicago's history with film. That'll sure wind their wheel up.
My kind of town, Chicago.